Krishnashtakam by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's one of my favorite and I chant it every day on my way to school. So I think it's very beautiful. It talks about what are the qualifications to be able to chant, because some of them people who don't have these qualifications will not be
Krishnashtakam
able to
by
chant.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Sorry. Yeah. So let me share the screen with the lyrics, and we just go through this kirtan before starting the class. Today we would like to complete the chapter 3, which ends with the description of the biggest enemy of the path of spirituality, which is lust. So we'll be discussing that. चेतो दर्पणमार्जनं भवमहादावाग्निर्वापनं श्रेय कैरवचन्द्रिका वितरणं विद्यावधूजीवनम् आनन्दाम्बुधिवर्धनं प्रतिपदं पूर्णामृता स्वादनं सर्वात्मस्नपनं परं विजयते श्रीकृष्णा संकीर्तनं नाम्नामकारि बहुधा निज सर्वशक्तिस् तत्रार्पिता नियमितस्मरणेन काले एतादृशी तव कृपा भगवन् ममापि दुर्दैवम् ईदृशं यहाजनेन अनुरागः गृणादपि सुनीचेन तरोरपि सहिष्णुना अमानिना मानदेन कीर्तनीया सदा हरिः न धनं न जनं न सुन्दरीं कवितां वा जगदीश कामये मम जन्मनि जन्मनीश्वरी भवताद् भक्तिर्हैतुकी त्वयि ऐनन्दतनुज किङ्करा पतितां मां विषमे भवाम्बुधो कृपया तव पादपङ्कज स्थितधूलिः सदृशं विचिन्तय नयनं गलदश्रुधारया वदनं गद्गदरुद्धया गिरा पुलकैर्निचितं वपुः कदा तव नाम ग्रहणे भविष्यति युगायतं निमेषेण चक्षुषा प्रावशायतं शून्यायतं जगत्सर्वं गोविन्दा विरहेण मे आश्लिष्य वा पादरतां पिनष्टु माम् अदर्शनां मर्महतां करोतु वा यथा तथा वा विदधातु लम्पटो मत्प्राणनाथसु मत्प्राणनाथस्तु स एव न परः। श्री कृष्णाष्टकम की जय, श्री चैतन्य महाप्रभु की जय, निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल. So in this verse, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, "Glory to Shri Krishna Sankirtana." So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna's own avatar, and he is telling us that the Shri Kirtan's Krishna Sankirtana, the fact that people come together and sing the Krishna's glories together, that is called Sankirtan. It cleanses the heart of all the dust which has been accumulated for years. So we have come to know in the Gita also that unless one is cleared of all the past dust, which is due to different sinful activities and predominant modes that has accumulated, the kirtan or the japa actually has a power to extinguish all that, the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. So powerful is the name of the Lord. So this Sankirtan movement is a benediction for humanity, because Kali Yuga, this is what is recommended at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It's the life of all transcendental knowledge. Simply japa or chanting is the life of all transcendental. You simply need to do japa and devotional service. Buddhi yogam dadamitam. Krishna says, I give you the buddhi of how to come to me. So you just will get the knowledge simply by being in Krishna consciousness. So it increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. Second verse says that the holy name can alone render all the benediction. And Krishna has hundreds and millions of names, Krishna, Govinda, and in these transcendental names, Krishna has invested all his transcendental energies. And they're not even any hard and fast rules. You can even chant in the restroom. For example, you can chant without bathing, you can chant when you have periods, you can chant when somebody has died in the family. There are no restrictions at all, and still, out of so much of kindness, Krishna has enabled us to easily approach him by his names. But still, we are so unfortunate, today's society, people are so unfortunate that they still don't have any attraction for these names. So one should chant the holy name in a humble state of mind. You need to think That's what I was saying. The qualification is, if you're not humble, you can't chant. You have to think oneself to be, yourself to be lower than the straw on the street. You should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, no false ego at all. You should be ready to offer respect to everybody, irrespective of whether they respect you or not. In such a state of mind, only can one have the holy name on the tongue. Oh, Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth. So this is a very tough, verse, which I keep, repeating whenever I find, some sort of desire. So when you have desire for wealth or beautiful women or a spouse, or sometimes you just want followers, you want people to listen to you. Any of these desires, the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I don't have any of these desires. I only want costless devotional service, birth after birth. I'm not even seeking liberty. And he says, "O son of Nanda, that is Krishna, I am your eternal survivor, and I know that right now I've fallen into this ocean of birth and death." So this knowledge is actually of prime importance, which we learn in the second chapter itself of Bhagavad Gita. Please pick me up from this ocean of birth and death and place me as one of the atoms of your lotus feet. That is the most beautiful place to be in, the lotus feet of the Lord. Oh my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing as I chant your holy name? So this is of highly elevated devotees. When they start chanting and they connect to God, tears will start flowing. When will my voice choke up? When will my hairs of my body stand? So in chapter 1 and towards the end, when I was describing Arjuna's conditions, bodily conditions, when he was facing that nervous breakdown, or not nervous, full of compassion, the breakdown he experienced, similar emotions are experienced when one is, in deep love for Krishna. So, Govinda, feeling your separation, I'm considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel as if there's a vacancy in my world without your absence. So I know no one but Krishna, and he will remain. So even if Krishna handles you roughly, whatever he gives you, he's giving it to you out of love. Whether he will embrace you, whether he will break your heart by not being there, present before me, and Krishna is completely free to do anything and everything. Yet I will always, worship the Lord unconditionally. And if anyone recites, what do you call it, the benefit. If you recite and hear these 8 verses of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you will get ecstatic love and devotion for Krishna, and it will increase every day. So thank you for staying with me for these first 8 minutes. I have taken to just do a kirtan, which is my favorite actually, the Shishtastakam. And now we shall begin with our class of chapter 3. Um, that is, we're going to conclude with the Karma Yoga. The teachings are based on his, I hope you can see my screen. The teachings are based on Srila Prabhupada's teachings, and he comes in the disciplinic succession, and so his teachings are very reliable. There are there are 3 other disciplinic successions, so there are 4 lines which you can follow and be sure that it is coming originally from Krishna. And it's actually by word of mouth, it's by hearing. The hearing process is very important in spiritual knowledge, and it actually passes down the generations through this process. And before I begin, I want to pay my humble, respectful obeisances to the beautiful deities of Sri Sri Radha Govinda Temple, the founder Acharya, his disciple Jayapataka Swami, his disciple and temple president Namnishta Prabhu, due to whose grace we are all able to be here and discuss on a free Zoom meeting. These courses of level 2 we're able to do only because of his grace. And I would like to thank Aishwarya Mataji for having the trust that I can take up this class and share these teachings with you. So let's quickly do a prayer. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharnini Vishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Desha Tarine. Sorry. ओम अज्ञान तिमिरान्धस्य शलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः श्री चैतन्य मनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्दे वन्देऽहं श्री गुरु श्री युतपदकमलं श्री गुरुं वैष्णवं च श्री रूपं सागरजातं सह गण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनं सहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादन सह गण ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितं च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीन बंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरंगे राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। So in chapter 3, we have done 3.1 to 3.9. I think we took 2 classes to do only these 3.1 to 3.9, and then after 3. I think to 12, and then we did it up to 18. So today is the third day we are doing chapter 3, or third or fourth, I can't recollect, I think third day. But hopefully we'll complete the last 2 sections. We have understood how Arjuna had a confusion very clearly. We have done it several times, renunciation or working in Nishkam Karma. And then we saw in great detail, very beautifully, how Krishna has presented Karma Kanda. So he has explained how, through the cycle of sacrifice, people do the different yajnas and sacrifices, offerings to different demigods, and we understood that demigods are in charge of every single benediction which comes to us through nature. And so it is in the Karma Kanda, the Vedas teach us how we will do these different yajnas to please the demigods. And eventually Krishna says that I am actually the benefactor. I am, the person who to whom all these sacrifices eventually come to. So he says that it is always better to directly worship Krishna rather than to worship the demigods, because when you worship the roots itself, all the demigods and everybody become pleased, because they are all nothing but part and parcel of the Lord himself. They are all within the universal form of the Lord. So beginning with Karma Kanda, Krishna gradually, very systematically brings us to the stage of Karma Yoga. And then in this section which we are presently doing, we are going to do a little bit more about Nishkama Karma, which is acting dutifully with detachment. So and then there's a very important point in this chapter. Before we move on to the question about lust and anger, we come to know about how it is important to set a correct example. And this setting an example is actually a clear answer to Arjuna's doubt about this war destroying all the men in the warfare, and therefore there would be no one to continue the different traditions and all those important things which are required for the sons to perform for their parents, and all these different traditions which are really crucial. He felt that all that would go would be no more there, and there would be women who would be used, and there would be children who are born out of the wedlock, and it could be a miserable society. But then Krishna gives the answer very clearly here, that if you don't do your duty, you would be actually setting a worse example, and people would follow you because you are somebody to be followed. And so he says that you need to set an example. You need to set an example by doing the right thing for you, which is to do your duty, and which is to follow Krishna. And you're not supposed to think of your own material happiness as to how difficult it is going to be for you if all your relatives are no more, or whether you're going to enjoy the kingdom or you're going to enjoy heaven. All these are related to your own selfish desires, and he explains what karma yoga is, where you and what is nishkam karma yoga, where you're no longer at all interested about what you are going to get or not get. It's of least interest for you. You only know that this is what Krishna wants, this is what dharma is, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm a kshatriya, it's my duty to take the kingdom which has been taken by unfair means, and so many other reasons. Krishna wants Yudhishthira to rule the kingdom and not Duryodhana, obviously. And so you have to simply follow the guidelines given by Krishna. And he says, be my instrument, he says later on. So he's basically, in this section, we come to know that Krishna is giving the idea that Arjuna needs to set an example. He needs to be a leader because people are going to follow him. And so the consequences of not doing your duty is going to be worse than, people, fathers or husbands, not being there, and the consequences related to that is not as much as the consequence of you setting a wrong example and people following you, not doing your duty. And he also says that people will be calling you a coward if you don't do that. And they will say, okay, so suppose somebody has to prepare for some exam, and we, okay, Arjuna, when he didn't want to do, he didn't do, so I'm also not going to do. So whatever, basically he's, people will look at him, and they will look at him as a role model, because that was what his position was at that point of time. And he's a kshatriya, that was his duty. So that is how In 3.17 to 35, Krishna will talk about acting dutifully with detachment and why it's important to set an example. And finally, he's going to talk about why we need to beware of these two biggest enemies, lust and anger, are the biggest enemies. So let's begin with 3.19 today. In 3.19 verse, am I audible or I haven't actually heard from any one of you. Am I audible, Hare Krishna?
Audible, Mataji, audible.
Audible. Am I too fast or is it fine?
It's fine, Mataji.
Okay, thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Prabhuji. So 3.19, it says, तस्मादसक्तः सततं कार्यं कर्म समाचर असक्तो ह्याचरन् कर्म परमाप्नोति पुरुषः. So in 3.19, Krishna is saying, therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activities, one should act so nishkam, without being attached to the fruits of activities. You need to act as a matter of duty, for by working without attachment, one attains the supreme. So as we know about the karma and vikarma and akarma, when you do your work, giving it, offering it to Krishna, there is no more attachment or bondage, and that is the only way that you can achieve the supreme. So that is what has been said. I would like to just quickly go through some examples of some famous people like Sukadev Goswami. So Lord Krishna says that when a person becomes situated in this state of non-attachment, that is, he is situated in the spiritual platform, he's satisfied with his own self, he's Atmaram, and he hasn't got to do anything. He has surpassed stages of offering sacrifice or worship. In that high state, we have a few examples like Sukadev Goswami, who, we are not supposed to imitate them because they are in a very high state. So we have a story where he walks, without wearing anything, and he's always self-satisfied. And how, some girls who were ladies who were taking bath, they quickly cover themselves when they see behind him his father Vedavyasa. That is the highest state that one reaches. Then Jada Bharata. So Jada Bharata is the next birth of Bharat, who had been born as a deer, and then in the next birth he takes the birth of Jada Bharata. We also have Raghunath Goswami, about whom we pray daily. Raghunath Goswami, he was also a young man and very rich man's son. And at that time, 500 years before, his father's income was like huge, like 10 million rupees or so. So there are many instances, and he gives it all up. It doesn't matter to him at all. So when one reaches that very high state, of devotion, that is where they reach. So Thakur Haridas also, of course, is similar to that. So these are some very famous examples that we can remember at this point. And we have this very, in the whole of Gita, the name which comes is of Janak Maharaj. So in this verse, we can see Janak Maharaj is referring, Krishna will praise Janaka, and he says in 3.20, कर्मणैवाहि संसिद्धिम् आस्थिता जनकादयः लोकसङ्ग्रहमेवापि सम्पश्यन् कर्तुमर्हसि. So kings such as Janaka, they attained perfection solely by performance of prescribed duties. So he's again here stressing why, it's not renunciation but performance of prescribed duties that Krishna, appreciates. Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in general, even though you have reached that extremely high state where you need not actually do anything, still people perform their work. I think this I had also covered in the last class itself. The entire thing actually I had been covering. Kindly mark your attendance. Ravi Prabhu has put. Mark your attendance and please state at the end of the class. So, a self-realized person, although he has no purpose to fulfill and there's no need for him to depend on anything, still he performs his duty, just because to educate the people in general. He will perform it with a lot of dedication. So that is why this example is set. Now let's look at 3.21. In 3.21, Krishna gives the example of the leader, like I had said. So it says, Yad Yadacharati Shreshthas Tadeva Taro Janaha Sayat Pramanam Kurute Lokastadanuvartate. So here he is giving the answer to Arjuna related to traditions being broken. So whatever action a great man performs, common men are going to follow. So whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world will pursue. Therefore, he's actually motivating Arjuna to understand what is his duty and be an example rather than to not do his duty and set a wrong example. And then in 3.22, Krishna says, Name parthasi kartavyam trishu lokeshu kinchana nanavaptam avaptavyam varta eva cha karmani. He says, O son of Pritha, there is no work prescribed for me. So he is giving his own example. He says, I actually have no need to do any work. Now, no work is prescribed for me within all the three planetary systems. Yet, when he comes in his original form, he's not an ordinary human being at all. He has carried the Govardhan mountain, so he's not at all ordinary. Yet he does all the different duties. He actually pays, obeisances to all who are elder to him in that birth. He when Kunti Mata comes, he actually bows down to her, takes her blessings. So he does everything as per the position in which he has taken. He has appeared. We don't say taken birth because Krishna is ever there, nor am I in want of anything. It's not that he needs to get anything. He's not bound by any karma or anything. He's not bound by modes. He has nothing to obtain. Krishna is above all the three modes. He's above karma. He is a Lord himself. And yet, when he appears, he performs, he engaged in whatever are his prescribed duties as per his, at different stages of his life, wherever he is, he performs all those things. See, you can see in this picture how little Krishna, when his father Nandagopa wants his slippers, he goes running and he carries his father's slippers on his head and he comes. And what to say of him in the battlefield? He takes up the position of a driver is something like a Shudra. He takes up the position of a driver for Arjuna. So it doesn't matter. He's a supreme Lord, infallible, whatever he does, and he does all his duties perfectly. He even goes to school. He takes, although he is a knower. Krishna is what's Krishna? He's an all knower. He knows the past, present, and future, and everything. Yet he goes to a Gurukul and he studies under Sandeepa Muni, Sandeepani Muni, I think it's Sandeepani Muni, and he takes the lessons and he performs every duty of his perfectly just to set an example. So he's giving his own example in this verse. In 3.23, Krishna is saying, यदि ह्यहं न वर्तेयं जातु कर्मण्यतन्द्रितः मम वर्तमानुवर्तन्ते मनुष्याः पार्थ सर्वशः. So he gives the reason, because if I fail to engage in carefully performing the prescribed duties, then certainly all men would follow my path. So this he's just trying to tell Arjuna, what he's supposed to do and what he's not supposed to do. He should be wary of not performing his duties and setting a wrong example. That's it. So in 3.24, there's a reference to Varna Sankara again. He's going to say that if he did not perform his duty, so if I did not perform the prescribed duties, all these worlds would be put to ruination. I would be the cause of creating unwanted population, and I would thereby destroy the peace of all living beings. It would be a huge misery if Krishna, has come on the earth and people are looking at him with so much of, awe and reverence, especially those who know that he's a Lord. And even those who don't, he has a high position in society, and so people look at him highly and regard him. And if he didn't perform his duties, it would cause a lot of misery in society, because a lot of unwanted population and a lot of other problems would arise. So this is what Krishna is saying here. We can see the picture of him lifting the Govardhan. So he is the Lord, the all-powerful Lord himself, and yet he does his duty. So we must follow the Lord. We can't imitate him. We can't imitate the great people, but we need to follow them. Now 3.25 is actually really, really important. So we'll just be here for a little while to understand 3.25. It says, सक्ताः कर्मण्य विद्वांसो यथा कुर्वन्ति भारत कुर्यद्विद्वांस्तथा सक्तः चिकीर्षुर्लोकसङ्ग्रहम्. The translation is that as the ignorant perform their duties with attachment to the results, the learned may similarly act but without attachment for the sake of leading people on the right path. So this is something we have already been discussed, but let us just quickly talk about the two classes of men which are being spoken about in this verse. So The ignorant, right? The ignorant people. So here we're talking about two classes of people. The first class of people are those who are ignorant. What do the ignorant people do? They are doing their duties. They're forced to. No one can be without doing their duties. They are doing their duties. However, they are very much attached to the results. But the learned will act with the same enthusiasm, probably more. In fact, it will be more. But their difference, major difference, is that they are not attached to the results. So this is what here we can see the two classes of people, the vidvan, or the learned, and the avidvamsha, which are the fools with the poor fund of knowledge. So the people who are in the modern civilization, actually, very, very sadly, the modern civilization, so-called advanced civilization, they don't believe in Krishna in the first place, which is the first reason why they're ignorant. They do not know how to engage their brain and their talents in the service of the Lord. So that is why they are. Krishna calls them in the Bhagavad Gita as Asura Jana. In 16.7, Krishna says, Pravrittim cha nivrittim cha vidurasura jana. So he says that the asuras, they don't know. They are actually the ignorant ones. Asuras is sometimes sad, but people feel that, oh, why is he saying asura? But actually, if you're not able to understand Krishna, you are actually asura. So most people in the world today are asuras, for that matter, demons. They think that they will live forever. They don't believe that they are, that they feel that they are the body, and they keep making big plans for material comforts. This is asuric civilization. They don't know that this material world is dukhalyam ashashwatam, as per the Bhagavad Gita 8.15. I'm just discussing about the fools and the wise part. So fools, they do not take the suffering into consideration, right? They think that, oh, this birth, death, and all this are normal things. I don't find that it's a suffering. So the so-called scientists also, they are using all the jugglery of words. They pretend as if they know exactly what they're saying, but in reality they are not even looking into the fact that their senses are so minute in comparison to the reality. And it's not that you shouldn't and try to explore the beautiful world which Krishna has given. Although it's a material world, it is a jail, and our main aim is to get away from here. Yet it's not that he's against them. It's just that when you get the human body, you need to raise your consciousness and not be stuck in only using your body to enjoy your body or your mind or your intellect. You're supposed to rise the consciousness even above that and try to understand what is the purpose of the human life, and try to understand soul. So the learned man, once he knows that he is without attachment, he is also doing everything, but he is learned. The whole perspective changes the moment the person is learning. So this is why I wanted to speak a little about this, to understand the difference between the ignorant and the learned. And we are all actually still ignorant. We're just struggling hard to read the Bhagavad Gita and try to reach the learned state, because we are not yet there. The Bhagavad Gita is clearly talking about these two classes of people, and we are like, somewhere, I guess, I don't know whether we are more in the ignorant side, but we are certainly just trying to understand what Krishna is, the knowledge he is giving us in this Bhagavad Gita. So in the verse 3.25, there is a difference in the desire of people who are foolish and the people who are self-realized. Those who are self-realized, they are so clear about everything, and so they work everything for Krishna. They're so sure that their duty is to satisfy Krishna's senses and nothing else. Whereas, and so they work without any, it is not possible to work without attachment to fruits unless you get this concept of Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, you can't be doing it. You won't be able to do it. And then why do these people who are in Krishna consciousness still put in all their efforts and do such beautiful work in this world, like King Janaka, to set an example and to lead people on the right path? The ignorant person is forever dreaming about material pleasures. He's like so clueless. You see, like everybody around you is literally running after some sort of material achievement, how to beat the others, how to come up and like how to earn more money, how their mind is like full on material desires. They only want to satisfy their own senses, and they're like totally blind to the knowledge, and they're totally ignorant, foolish, which Krishna calls them. They work with attachment to fruits, and that is which is the results of the work. So let's move on to 3.26. 3.26, Krishna is saying, न बुद्धिभेदं जनयेद ज्ञानां कर्म संगिनां जोषयेत् सर्वकर्माणि विद्वान् युक्तः समाचरन्. So as not to disrupt the minds of ignorant men, right? So when you're actually amidst people who are running after material pleasures, the so-called carrots, one after the other, you see them working like mad people. I was also very much like that. I used to put in my heart and soul into my work and work day and night. I never knew there's something called Gita. What is the purpose of human life? All I wanted is some appreciation or do some great things, at my workplace. And most of us, I believe, were asses. They call such people are called donkeys. In the later verse, you can see Krishna calling them donkeys. So they are donkeys who are attached to fruitive results of prescribed duties. Once you become learned, once somebody will open your eyes to the knowledge in the Bhagavad Gita, and Krishna, the Lord, is coming and telling you all these things, then a learned person, however, it doesn't stop them from work. For example, right now I chant 16 every morning. I mean, not every morning. Mostly, if I don't, I try to carry it forward in the rest of the day. But I find time somehow. I somehow attend all my, classes which are related to Bhakti Shastri. I do whatever. But earlier, I would be like day and night working for my school. And now it's not like I'm not doing my work badly. In fact, I have learned a skill of satisfying the people at my workplace also, and at the same time doing my duty towards my soul, because somewhere, because of this, the Gita classes by Namnishta Prabhu in the COVID times has really, made me understand that this is not my purpose. I'm running after things which are so temporary. So rather, by working in the spirit of devotion, person, what a person, once he becomes learned, it doesn't stop working. Krishna is clearly telling you, don't renounce work. Engage whatever you're doing, all your activities, for the gradual development of Krishna consciousness. And trust me, when you start doing that, some way will come by which you can be more and more in this movement of Krishna consciousness. Here, I just want to share with you a small thing which is happening right now in my life. For example, I'm an English teacher, and I never ever believed that I would be able to teach the Gita in the class. But somehow, the ISKCON Coimbatore, I'm living in Coimbatore, they organized a program for school children, and I approached with this Gita program, a 5-day course, to my principal, and it was amazing how she just agreed to it. And thereafter, I've been able to teach the Gita in school as well. So I'm able to plan along with my English, and I try to connect my English classes also to different values which Krishna talks about in the Gita. So it's like, somehow you connect what you're doing with Krishna. Of course, those who earn a lot, they're also able to say that, okay, I'm earning so much, I'm going to give this much to Krishna consciousness movement, because it is the best form of charity, as you will see later. Just giving people education or books or food. Better than that, the highest is to give them Krishna consciousness. And the movement is really so valuable, because that is the need of the hour. So I think I'm diverting from the topic. So coming back, let's come to 3.27. In 3.27 is again a very important verse. It says, Prakritehi kriyamanani gunay karmani sarvashah ahankara vimudhatma kartaham iti manyate. This was an eye-opening verse for me, 3.27. The spirit soul is actually bewildered by the influence of false ego. We are so bewildered. We forever think that I am the doer, right? The person who is in this false ego keeps thinking that himself to be the doer of all the activities. Whatever has happened, you think, oh no, I wish I didn't do that. If I didn't do that, things would be so. If I did that, you're forever taking the blame of things which are not going well, or taking the entire credit for things. I did this. That's why this happened, and you keep thinking so highly about yourself, you fail to realize that you are never the doer of any result. You cannot be the sole doer. Of course, you are contributing to what has happened, but you are just like 1/3 or 1/5. There are totally so many other things which you will see in two different chapters where Krishna explains that it is very foolish, or maybe you could say egotist, to think that you are the person who is in charge of things which are happening around you. In actuality, they are all carried out by three modes of material nature. So that is what Krishna is talking in 3.27. So talking a little more about that, Krishna is saying that all these living entities, right? We're all the different living entities. Actually, every one of us, there is a spirit soul. It does not matter whether I'm a human being or other than a human being, lower animals, birds, bees. So there are varieties of life, right? There are like 8,400,000 or 84 lakh. So there are, the Jalaja Navalakshana as per Padma Purana, it says that in water there are 900,000 varieties. And we only know about some fish or some crocodiles, and the amount that we have discovered is not that much. So there are like 900,000, and there are, these are the forms of aquatics. And the Padma Purana is speaking, in an there's an authority in what they're saying, and so that, gradually when scientists will turn to this, they'll be able to do further research and be able to prove many things which have been already written here in scripture. That is already happening in many cases. So what I'm trying to drive over here is that, we are, what we think of us of having perfect knowledge is actually not perfect knowledge. This is what I keep telling, speaking about when we say apara and para education. So this is actually the knowledge which is there in scriptures, which come down to the guru. We need to understand that it is perfect. It's not like, the guru is by the guru parampara system, as we will be seeing in tomorrow's class in 4.1 and 4.2, when Krishna is talking about the evam parampara praptam. So he says, and this Bhagavad Gita is a song of the god. It's not a new literature. So he says that I have given this knowledge to Vivaswan, the sun god. And basically it is not paurasham. This knowledge is not which is simply said by some human being. It is divine. It has come from Krishna himself. And the whole reason why we have all these indifferences happening, like for example in the UN we have so many different flags, and people are thinking this is my land, that is my land. All this is because of the lack of understanding that there is a Krishna who is in control of the whole world. The entire material energy and everything is controlled by Krishna. And Prakriti, or material nature, has three qualities, three modes of material nature. Is also a very difficult concept to understand, although I will be speaking about this throughout these classes. Let me tell you, I'm also really trying to get a understand in-depth understanding of it. When we say that material nature is Maya, and then we say that Maya is made of the three modes, and then we say that the three modes are controlling us. So, and the entire varieties of human beings you see around us, it is combinations of these different modes. That's why people are of different natures. So nature actually is controlling you. As you can see in this picture, you can see material nature is like, in fact you're like just katputli, like puppets. It's controlling you all the time. Based on which mode you are giving predominance, it will take over you and it's going to control you. But here we need to just understand that these, you can see the pictures of mother nature in these three modes. They've got such a pleasant face. It's not like they want to control you, or they are like, you know some demons who are doing that. It's simply like the police force. Suppose you have an able police force, the government has arranged for the police force to be there. So the criminality that the police is controlling in this case is that we have turned our face against Krishna. So as you would have seen, for example, here Prabhupada has mentioned in one of his speeches about Jesus Christ. So we have Jesus Christ, who, when he was, crucified, he says, "Forgive them, for they know not, they know not what they're doing." So you can see here that that basically the people with the criminal mentality, or who are the wrongdoers, they are in the modes. They are controlled by the modes, and they actually don't know what they're doing. So that is the reason why when people around us, they are doing things as per their modes, we are doing things as per the modes that we have fed. We are doing things as per things happen to us as per our karma, and different things are happening to people around us as per their karma. There's so many factors which are involved in the way things will work out. So the science of God, actually to understand the science of Krishna as per the Bhagavad Gita, is like, it's a huge movement. And it's really sad to see that again and again, I'm having to say, because it's really disheartening that people don't talk about it. The schools and colleges and universities, they don't even have a department which teaches you all this or gets you to meditate and understand these precious scriptures. So this is something, which is really lacking in our society as of now. So I think more, I'll not go more into this. So 3.27, I wanted to just talk a little bit more about the modes of nature and about the fact that we are not the doers. So moving on to 3.28, it says, तत्त्ववित्तु महाबाहो गुणकर्म विभागयोः गुणा गुणेषु वर्तन्त इति मत्वा न सज्जते. So Krishna says, in the translation, Prabhupada is telling us that Krishna is saying, one who has the knowledge of the absolute truth, O mighty armed, he does not engage himself in the sense and the sense gratification, knowing well that knowing well the differences between work in devotion and work in fruitive results. So one who knows the absolute truth, he is called the Tattvavit. So this word Tattvavit is really, really important. It is about one who is in knowledge of the absolute truth, which is again a very difficult position for one to achieve. So the word Tattvavit, let's just look at it one more time. At the word tattva with, which means that somebody who is a knowledge of the absolute truth. And one, I have written some points about tattva with actually. So this is 3.28, and yeah, the person who knows. Tattvavit is one who knows, yeah. Basically, it is one who knows his actual position in relationship with the Supreme. So there is a reference of Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.11, which also talks about the word Tattvavit. That's why I wanted to say that here. The verse in Srimad Bhagavatam says, वदन्ति तत्त्ववेदस्तत्त्वयज्ञानमद्वयं ब्रह्मेति परमात्मेति भगवानिति शब्दते. So here it says that the learned transcendentalists, who are the ones who know the absolute truth, they are the ones who are the learned transcendentalists. And they know the absolute truth and they call this non-dual substance as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So this understanding that realization comes in these three steps. First, the Brahman realization that God is an energy, and then the Paramatma realization God is in every living entity, in every atom, and everything around. He is there in everything, yet He is one. And then finally, the Bhagwan realization where God is actually a person very much waiting for you to come and realize what is your position, and then you'll be joyfully serving Him. So men who are ignorant, they can't appreciate work done in Krishna consciousness. They'll be like, what are these people simply wasting their time chanting? What are they doing all this deity worship? And they will not be able to understand that those who are engaged in Krishna consciousness, a devotee, is actually in a very high position. He is actually already in Vaikuntha. So that little area where you're doing a devotional service is actually Vaikuntha. So, just like Nityananda Prabhu took all the risk, Prabhupada has also mentioned about how Lord Jesus Christ also took all the risk. Therefore, devotees, they are so kind that although people are totally clueless about why they are sitting and chanting and doing Sankirtan movement and doing deity worship and getting up early in the morning and doing all these things, a devotee is so merciful, he will still go on and try to explain the Krishna consciousness and take the pains to keep on explaining the Bhagavad Gita to the others who are totally clueless about it. Those people who are so much in material consciousness, Krishna actually tells them don't disturb them because he doesn't want the devotee to be hurt. In spite of that, they are the people who will keep on trying because the devotee is even more kind than God himself. So that was a certain point which I wanted to mention from Prabhupada's lecture. So let's move to 3.29. 3.29 says, Prakritir गुणसम्मूढा सज्जन्ते गुणकर्मसु तान् कृत्स्नविदो मन्दान् कृत्स्नविन्न विचालयेत्. Bewildered by the modes of material nature, the ignorant are fully engaging themselves in material activities and so they become very attached. You must be remembering the verses Vyayato Vishayan Punsa Sange Seshupajayate in the second chapter, where we see how the moment we get attached to the different material activities, immediately our downfall, the downfall begins. So ignorant people, they attach themselves to material activities, and so the wise, however, what Krishna says that they should not unsettle them. Although the duty they are doing is obviously very, very inferior, because they are doing it with total lack of knowledge. They're not even understanding that these are temporary, that this is not their purpose. They're like animalistic, they're still in the very low stage. And so it is important that the wise people, Krishna likes a quality, of not disturbing others. You're not supposed to disturb them, and at the same time you shouldn't get disturbed by them. You should be able to understand that, okay, bahunam janmanamante, right? 7.19, Krishna says bahunam janmanamante jnanavan mam prapadyate vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sadurlabha. Only after so many births will one come to the Gita, and Krishna will be, will grace you with this knowledge of the Gita after so many births. At the same time, we have to be very careful. Today we sung Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Shishtastakam, which says that you need to be humble. As humble, you can't, there's a tendency to, as soon as you get spiritual knowledge, oh, I'm superior, I got this knowledge. But actually the true devotee will be more humble than a blade of grass, and his only concern is compassion for those who are not yet having this knowledge and who are running madly after the material pleasures which are so temporary. And we need not get disturbed also, because Manushyanam Sahasreshu Kaschid Yatati Siddhaya. Yatatam api Siddhanam Kaschid Mam Vedi Tattvataha. So only very few can understand Krishna in reality. Right? Manushyanam Sahasreshu, 7.3 verse, Krishna is saying that. So this is about not disturbing person who is not yet, who is running after foolishly the material desires. So now we are come to verse 3.30, which says, Mayi sarvani karmani sanyasya adhyatma chetasa Nirashi nirmamo bhutva yudhyasva vigatajvaraha. So here Krishna, says in verse 3.30, no claims of proprietorship and free from lethargy, fight. So in 3.30, he's actually telling you discharge your duties as if in military discipline, get up and fight. So adhyatma chetasa. Actually, the word adhyatma chetasa, which comes in the second line of this verse, is talking about Krishna consciousness. So what is Krishna consciousness? There are 9 kind of devotional services which comes under Krishna consciousness. It's a good idea for us to just sorry, to just quickly go through these 9 forms of devotional service, which says Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atma Nivedanam. So this comes in the Bhagavad Gita 7.5.23. So Adhyatma Chetasa means, this is described as by Prahlad Maharaj. What is devotional service? It actually incorporates hearing, chanting about the transcendental holy name, Krishna's form, meditating on his qualities, his paraphernalia, his pastimes of Lord Vishnu, remembering them so, happily, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, offering him respectful worship with 16 kinds of paraphernalia, offering prayers to him, becoming his servant, considering the Lord as your best friend, surrendering everything unto him. In other words, serving him with your body, mind, and words. These 9 processes are pure devotional service. So one has to dedicate his life to the service of Krishna through these 9 methods, and then you are actually you are in Adhyatma Chetasa. Shravanam is like kindly hearing. That's a huge devotional service. Just patiently listening. It's actually the highest. Just listening. And Kirtanam is glorifying the Lord. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevanam. Archanam is doing, worship. Like in the church, they also have devotional service, or whether there's a mosque, wherever they're doing devotional service. Everything in relationship God to God is what is called perfection. That's the way. The main pillar, however, we need to remember is Shravanam. We need to ensure that we are in devotional associations, so that we can constantly concentrate our mind and think of Krishna, Manmana Bhavamad Bhakto. So you need to be, gradually trying to achieve perfection in the yoga system without, allowing the mind to flicker, and constantly be in devotional service. Right. So that is about 3.30. Let's quickly look at the purpose of Bhagavad Gita is surrendering everything, your work unto Krishna, with full knowledge that Krishna is Vasudeva Sarvamiti. Krishna says that you have to simply understand that Krishna is everything. And only then you will be able to reach the stage of being without desires for profit. It's very difficult. It's not possible to, have material desires and have spiritual inclinations. You have to have only, you will ultimately have only one. When you have full knowledge of Krishna, you will be able to be without desires. You have no sense of proprietorship because you're so clear that everything belongs to him. And then Krishna is therefore, in this verse, in fact, why is it important? It's telling you, free yourself from lethargy and fight. So get up. You don't have to have any desire for profit. What's going to happen? No worry about the result, no claim of proprietorship. Simply knowledge that Krishna is everything. Surrender your work unto me, be free from lethargy and work. So in 3.31, Krishna is saying, ये मे मतमिदं नित्यम् अनुतिष्ठति मानवाः श्रद्धावन्तो न सूयन्तो मुच्यन्ते तेऽपि कर्मभिः. Those persons who execute their duties according to my injunctions, that is as per the Vedas, who follow the teaching, this teaching which Krishna has given in the Bhagavad Gita, faithfully, without any envy. So here the word envy is vena, so you na Nasuyanto. So there's no asuya, no envy. And then you will be able to become free from the bondage of fruitive actions. So envy is a very, very important term. Several people, they just don't get it because it requires to constantly listen. Even I am struggling to really understand this envy. Sometimes it's difficult to see why people should be envious of the Lord. In fact, we come to know that the whole reason why we are on this earth, in this material world, we are locked, is because of envy. Everyone is envious. There are people who, the extreme length, when they kind of declare that God is dead, like there is no God at all, right? So envious people begin with, they'll be speaking about what is this nonsense Krishna consciousness. And such people who are in this state of mind, when they hear people say Hare Krishna, they'll be like, what they totally, they're laughing, they're making fun of you. So that is the level where they are in. And however, these people actually who are doing that, they are like sleeping people. So what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, he says, wake up. Why are you disturbing me? He's like, why are you doing all this? Why are you disturbing me? But what does the devotee say? He says, wake up. And actually, you're saving him. You're saying, come on, chant Hare Krishna. Daivi Hesha Gunamai. So in verse 7.14, Krishna says, Daivi Hesha Gunamai Mama Maya Duratyaya Mameva Ye Prapadyante Maya Metam Tarantite. He says this divine energy of mind with these three modes is very difficult to open. It's only when you have surrendered unto me can you easily cross beyond it. So people who do not know how much they are trapped by Maya, Daivi Hesha Gunamai, they are thinking that they are very happy, that they are making progress, but they actually don't know that they are in the position of illusion. They are in Maya. They are not aware of that. So in this Kali Yuga, when there are actually no proper social structure, no Varnashrama Dharma, it's very difficult, in fact, to really determine your prescribed duties. And so, basically everybody in Kali Yuga is a Shudra. Nobody is a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, anything. And the highest principle is Brahmanism, where they understand the basic Brahman. One who knows Brahman is a Brahmana. And that such people are now missing. So Krishna consciousness movement is actually trying to bring people even higher than the Brahmana level, which is the Vaishnava level. So Srila Prabhupada says that it's not just tying of a sacred thread that makes you a Brahmana. When you understand this knowledge and you start talking about this to others, you are a Vaishnava, because Vaishnava is one who is, Pira Paraya Jani. He is so compassionate. So in 4.13, we have the verse Chatur Varna Maya Srishta. So, this is a very important point, which, very disturbing actually, because many people keep on, you know, talking ill about the caste system, not knowing when Krishna is saying, I am the one who created it. And when you really deeply listen to the people who are talking about what Krishna means, according to the three modes of material nature, not according to the birth. And the work ascribed them, the four divisions are created. And although I am the creator, I am yet the non-doer. So there's no question of birth in this. So the highest perfection is basically to understand all these, that guna karma vibhagasha, that we are trapped because of our gunas and karmas. And then to understand this principle of envy has brought us here. And only then, when we understand all this, can we escape from this fruitive actions, the bondage of fruitive actions. So moving on to 3.32. ये त्वेतदभ्यसूयन्तो नानुतिष्ठन्ति मे मतं सर्वज्ञानविमूढांस्तान् विद्धि नष्टान चेतसः. So in 3.32, Krishna is talking, in 3.32, Krishna is talking about um, those who out of envy, so coming back to the point of envy, they disregard these teachings. So actually here we can see an explanation as to why people are disregarding the teachings. It is because of envy. So those who are not able to understand these teachings, are not able to follow them, they are not realizing that they are actually trapped in maya and they're actually envious, and so they don't follow all these teachings regularly, and so it's basically because they're bereft of knowledge, they're not getting it, and they are befooled, and so they're ruined in their endeavors for perfection. Sarva jnana vimudham stan vidhi nashtan achetasa. So it is a very sad position that they are in. They are actually, unable to understand that they are um, it is out of envy that they are unable to come to the position of understanding Krishna consciousness. So these are some of the verses where Krishna is saying in the Bhagavad Gita about all this. So in 3.33, so Krishna is like the essence of all the Vedas, right? So there is a Srila Prabhupada has explained this verse by saying that everyone has to understand that he's a servant. So we feel very embarrassed to say that okay, we are servant of Krishna, but we fail to realize that if we're not serving Krishna, we're actually serving Maya. Everyone is a servant of the country, or even the prime minister, for that matter, is a servant of the entire country. He is serving everyone. So the concept that you are actually serving your spouse. In fact, you're serving your pets. You're going and cleaning up behind them. You're giving them food. You're actually serving all these different material people around you, and then you fail to understand that the intelligent and wise person realizes that he would rather serve God, and be a servant of God rather than be a servant of the dog. So people are running after trying to please all these different, people around them, or the, Maya, the material nature, and they don't see that once they understand that they're servant of God, they become free from bondage. A servant of dog, or a servant of Prabhupada uses the word play with God and dog. He says to become a servant of God is to be free from bondage, and when you become a servant of dog, that is bondage. So that is an analogy. Also, he gives an analogy of a child who's trying to stand. So in the beginning there will be some failures, right? That, for example, a child is trying hard to stand, he will fall down, but that does not mean that he will give up the idea. A time will come when he will be perfect, and he will certainly be able to walk on his own. So we should not give up this business of trying to understand Krishna, of trying to serve the Supreme Lord. Even though we may be imperfect in the beginning, we need to stick to it, and then a time will come when we will become more and more thorough in our Krishna consciousness. So somebody, so this is basically very important thing to eventually come to understand that our master is only Krishna. There is a verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi 5.1.2, which says, Ekale Ishvara Krishna Ara Sabha Bhritya. It means that Lord Krishna alone is the supreme controller, and all others are actually his servants. All the demigods, everyone is actually dancing, and as per how he is making them dance. So only Krishna, God, is the master. Yare Yashe Nachaya Se Taiche Kare Nritya. Each servant is dancing only according to the order of the supreme. So no one is master. Maya, if you feel that somebody is a master, that is illusion. It's only out of envy that we're not able to see that God is the master. So in 3.33, it's saying that even a man of knowledge, he acts according to his own nature, for everyone follows his nature. So at least, he's not a servant of nature, he becomes a servant of God. So that is a basic point I was making over here in 3.33. In 3.34, Krishna is telling us, in 3.34, Krishna is saying, इन्द्रियस्येन्द्रियस्यार्थे रागद्वेषौ व्यवस्थितौ तयोर्न विषमागच्छेत् ह्यस्य परिपन्थिनौ. So 3.34 is all about attraction and repulsion. There are principles to regulate our attachment and aversion pertaining to senses and their objects. One should not come under the control of such attachment and aversion because they are stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. I won't come and talk about the Bharat and the deer story because I'm sure you must have all heard it several times. It's about how Bharat got attached to the baby deer and therefore he had to take birth. He had to come down from all his spiritual advancement and take birth as a deer and start all over. And in 3.35, Krishna is saying it's far better to discharge one's own prescribed duties, even though faultily, than performing somebody else's duties, even though you might think that you're actually better at doing that. Because to follow another's path is dangerous. And so now we move on to conquering the ultimate enemy, which is lust. So the next important question that Arjuna asks is, after hearing text 3.34, anyone would determinedly think that yes, from today onwards, I'm going to do my duty, control my attachments and aversions, and I will act only as per Shastra. So experienced teachers state that, however, immediate inspirations may be difficult to adhere to over time. So Arjuna, being aware of this reality, that's why he comes to ask, he says, O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts even unwillingly as if engaged by force? So people who are, in fact, even Duryodhana, he says that I know what is dharma. It's not like I don't know, but I just don't feel like doing it. He says, I know that what I'm doing is adharma, but what to do? I just feel like doing it. So, it is very clear that people who do wrong things in the heart of hearts, they actually know that what they're doing is wrong. So, if you haven't filled the attendance, I request you all to quickly fill the attendance. We are at the last part of the chapter 36 of chapter 3. We just reached 37 until 43. We'll go through quickly. This is a very important, it's based on the verse 2.62 and 63, where first all the lust begins with thinking about objects of sense enjoyment. So first we are in the thinking stage. Then when we keep on dwelling on it, we're not able to cut it out. Then you develop an attachment. So then you start feeling, the attachment for the different pleasures, and then it leads to lust, and then you're gradually moving into the willing and doing stage, and then your lust is unsatisfied because obviously it can never be satisfied, so it will result in anger and delusion, bewilderment, loss of intelligence, and fall. So in 3.37, Krishna is saying that it's only lust. What is the answer? What is the reason why people who are doing wrong things, knowing that it is wrong? It's because of lust. They have not allowed to stop their attachments to things at the thinking stage. They have allowed it to seep into the feeling and willing stage and later transform into wrath, which is all devouring sinful enemy. So in 3.38 we have this beautiful verse which says that as fire is covered by smoke, mirror is covered by dust, embryo is covered by the womb, the living entity is covered in different degrees of lust. So the whole reason why we are born is again because of our lusty desires. It's because of our envy for God. It's because of our lust for our desire to enjoy separate from the Lord, and for being envious as to why should He have all the power, and not understanding that you are part and parcel of that supreme power, and you're supposed to feel secure and happy there. And if you accept that position, you'll be so joyful. And without understanding, we have turned our face away, and therefore we have covered ourselves with lust, with desires. So the wise living entity's pure consciousness is covered by the enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied, and it will burn like fire. That is what 3.39 says. And 3.40, we have this beautiful analogy which tells us that it tells us that the senses, the mind, and intelligence. So if you talk about lust, where is lust? How do I conquer lust? So Krishna will tell you where is your lust sitting. It is sitting in your senses. Those are the ones which are attracting you to do things. It is sitting in your mind. Your mind is saying, do this, don't do that, like this, don't like that. It's putting you in duality. So intelligence is where your lust is sitting, which is covering your intelligence and not allowing you to see your true self. Because your self is covered by lust in all these three places. Your senses, your mind, and your intelligence is covered by lust. So your soul is bewildered. not knowing the real position. So Arjuna, best of Bharatas, in the very beginning, curbed this great symbol of lust by regulating the senses and slayed his destroyer. So the beginning here has two meanings. Either from childhood itself, it's a great thing to learn about lust and see that you don't fall trapped to it. And also it means that as soon as a desire comes, you stop it at the thinking stage and don't allow it to move to your feeling stage. So the degrees of covering of lust are, in the beginning of Krishna consciousness, we have, it's just like smoke or fire. Cleansing by spiritual methods is like dust on the mirror. And when the knowledge is completely covered, it's like the womb. So, and the characteristics of love star, it covers a living entity's consciousness as a symbol of ignorance. It can never be satisfied. And satisfying lust is like adding fuel to fire. So, how do we stop it? You have to stop feeding lust. How do you conquer the enemy of lust? When you know the sitting places of lust, it's in the senses, it's in the mind, it's in the intelligence. And so it covers the soul ultimately, it makes it conditioned. And the center of all activities of the senses, a reservoir of ideas for sense gratification. So the intelligence is where the lusty intelligence is the capital which influences the soul, and the soul therefore acquires false ego. So because lust is there in the senses, in the mind, and in the intelligence, that is why the soul acquires a false ego. So in the last two verses, Krishna will tell us how to overcome lust. It is through Krishna consciousness. Even a late beginner can become a lover of God by following the regulative principles of devotional service. So in the verse 3.42, we can see Krishna is talking about how the body is actually in the lowest level. The senses have control over the body, that is, which are dull matter. The mind has a control over the senses. The intelligence is higher than the mind, and the soul is the highest. But the soul will be able to exercise its position only when the lust is removed from the senses, mind, and intelligence levels, and it becomes pure, which is possible only through the process of devotional service or through chanting. So in many scriptures, we hear that it's only through devotional service that lust can be conquered. So initially we are in the bodily platform, only think of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So that is purely physical level. Then people who are at a slightly higher level, they start enjoying sensual things. For example, maybe some music or some higher sensual platform where they start focusing um, on securing ways in which they can give their senses more enjoyment. And then in a little higher platform, they take to reading, or they take to they're working on their mind. So they're covered by the idea of good, bad, and they start discriminating or getting carried away by the dualities because they're living in the mental platform. Still higher is the intellectual platform, and they start thinking about who am I actually. I am soul. I'm not this body. This is a temporary phase in the journey of the soul. And they start thinking about death. They start understanding that after death there is a life after that, and where is it that I want to go. And then the highest is when they are in complete Krishna consciousness, where they know that their basic purpose is simply to understand that Krishna is the supreme controller, and Krishna just wants me to understand this and get back to him so that you can be free from your false ego. So what is the Bhagavad Gita telling us? It is telling us that the soul, intelligence, mind, and senses are the different outlets for the activities of lust. And the solution to lust is Bhagavad Gita. It is Krishna consciousness. So even though the soul is a master of intelligence, mind, and senses, unless we strengthen it by Krishna consciousness, by chanting, it is not possible for it to not fall down, because the mind will easily get agitated. So the final verse says, the 3.43 verse says, Evam buddhe param buddhva samsabhyatmanam jahi shatrum mahabaho kamarupan durasdurasadam. So once you know yourself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind, and intelligence, this is a very difficult concept to understand. Even your senses, mind, and intelligence are material. Although they're subtle, they are material. And Krishna is saying, oh, mighty and Arjuna, once you know that you're actually transcendental to even these, only then you will be able to start steadying your mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, which is simply Krishna consciousness. And thus, by your spiritual strength, only then can you conquer the insatiable enemy known as lust, and therefore you will be able to stop yourself from doing adharma. So with that, we come to the end of chapter 3. I'm sorry I rushed a little towards the end, but I think I had been covering these concepts earlier. So I hope I have done justice to this chapter, and we shall move on to chapter 4 tomorrow. Does anybody have anything to share, or would you like to give me some feedback or some reflection? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, very good, Mataji. Class is nice.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So I shall end the class. We are 10 minutes late. I'm sorry for that. Vancha kalpataru vyasya kripa sindhu eva Vancha kalpataru vyasya kripa sindhu eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyam namaste. Hare Krishna. So we'll meet tomorrow and we'll begin the chapter 4, which is a very important chapter. And there are lots of key concepts which are very interesting to discuss. So see you all tomorrow. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna
Mataji.
Mataji.
So,
Hare Krishna.